all love a good celebration. Like, I mean, the music, the food, just the feeling of everyone you care about converging in one single space.
Yeah, it's the best.
It is. But I want you to think back for a second. Have you ever been to an event where you felt this, like, creeping sense of physical discomfort that just wouldn't go away?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. Maybe you were seated at a table that was so tightly packed against a wall that, every single time someone needed to get by, the whole table literally had to stand up.
That is the worst.
Or maybe the acoustics in the room were just so chaotic and loud that you couldn't process a single word the person next to you was saying. So you just, you kind of nod and smile into the void for 3 hours.
They're just pretending at that point.
Exactly. And it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because you stop being a participant and you start being like a survivor. You feel like an afterthought.
You really do. It's an incredibly isolating feeling. And what happens is that the primary objective of the event, which is connection and celebration, it gets completely hijacked by your brain's need to just manage its own discomfort.
Right.
You're no longer celebrating. You are literally just managing friction.
Managing friction. That is exactly it. And that friction is what we are trying to permanently eliminate today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are looking at this extensive, incredibly detailed guide. It's titled Planning for Accessibility.docs, and it's built on the logistical frameworks of the wedding planning platform Weddizer.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
It really is. So our mission for today's deep dive is to explore how true hospitality goes way, way beyond the aesthetics, beyond the floral arrangements and the custom cocktails.
Right, the stuff people usually stress about.
Exactly. We're looking at how meticulously planning for accessibility is actually the ultimate blueprint for making any guest feel genuinely valued. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because I think when most people hear the word accessibility, they immediately tense up.
Oh.
They picture, like, building codes, measuring tapes, and compliance officers just ruining the vibe.
Right. They view it through a purely legalistic lens. It becomes this bureaucratic box to check just so you don't get in trouble.
Exactly.
But the guiding philosophy of our source text completely upends that framework. This document argues that designing for accessibility is fundamentally an act of radical hospitality.
Radical hospitality. I love that phrasing.
Yeah, and while the specific context of this guide is weddings, because, it draws heavily on Weddizer's event planning architecture, we should really be looking at this as a masterclass in event design and human empathy. It's about actively engineering an environment where human beings can just comfortably exist.
Well, I definitely appreciate that philosophical shift, but let's look at the pragmatic reality of how people actually plan events. Because let's be honest, when the average person hears accessibility, their imagination usually just stops at a wheelchair ramp.
Yeah, that's the default image.
Right. And the immediate pushback is often, look, I have a guest list of 150 people. None of them use a wheelchair. Why am I re-engineering the foundational logistics of my event for a demographic that isn't even attending?
And that is the most common pitfall right there in event planning.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you are looking at a very narrow, highly visible slice of accessibility, and you're completely ignoring the massive invisible spectrum of human needs. I mean, the source guide actively dismantles this assumption.
Okay, so who are we actually talking about then? Because assuming accessibility is only for wheelchair users, well, it's kind of like thinking a smartphone is literally only for making phone calls. You're missing the wider utility of the whole thing.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. Yes. When we talk about an accessible guest, I mean, yes, we are absolutely talking about wheelchair users. But the text explicitly broadens the scope.
How so?
Well, it includes seniors with declining lower body mobility. It includes guests who are using walkers, canes, or crutches. And it specifically mentions pregnant guests.
Oh, pregnant guests, right.
Yeah, because they experience a rapid shift in their center of gravity and their stamina. And it also includes families who are trying to navigate your event while pushing a baby stroller.
Oh, man, it's funny you mentioned strollers because I was at an outdoor wedding last summer and trying to push this really heavy stroller across a decorative gravel driveway, it felt like trying to push a shopping cart through wet sand.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, it was exhausting. I was sweating before the ceremony even started.
And that exhaustion is exactly the friction we're talking about. The text also brings up temporary disabilities. So, say someone sprained their ankle playing tennis 3 days before your event.
Right. Life happens. Exactly. And crucially, it highlights guests with sensory processing sensitivities or chronic pain conditions. So when you stop looking for the standard wheelchair symbol and start looking at the actual physiology of your friends and family, you realize you aren't accommodating a tiny fraction of your guest list.
You're accommodating a huge chunk of it.
You're accommodating a massive, vital portion of your community.
That reframing makes so much sense. It kind of reminds me of the curb cut effect in urban planning.
Oh, yes. Classic example.
Right. Like originally, sidewalks had those little ramps cut into them specifically for wheelchair users. But suddenly, people with heavy luggage, cyclists, and parents with strollers realized, oh, wow, this makes my life significantly easier too. Universal design basically benefits everyone.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, making accessibility a core priority isn't just about avoiding exclusion. It actually elevates the baseline quality of the entire event for every single person there.
It totally shifts the perspective.
It shifts your mindset from this stressful, how do I accommodate this one specific disability, to the much more empowering, how do I anticipate the reality of the human body?
Okay, so now that we've properly defined who we are accommodating, we logically have to look at the where. Because you obviously cannot host a truly inclusive event in an exclusive physical space.
No, you really can't.
The venue is basically the filter through which every other decision has to pass.
The guide is absolutely adamant about this. The venue is the absolute foundation. I mean, if you choose a venue with inherent structural barriers, you will spend the rest of your budget and your energy fighting a massive uphill battle.
So what does the source suggest we do?
Well, it provides a framework of critical questions that you literally have to answer before you sign a contract or put down a single deposit.
Let's walk through those structural questions because I know people listening are probably planning things right now.
Yeah. So first, are the primary entrances actually barrier-free? And we have to be precise here. Not just is there a door, but is there, like, a lip on the door frame that's going to catch wheels?
Oh, right. Even a 1-inch bump can be a roadblock.
Exactly. Second, if it's a multi-story venue, is there a reliable operational elevator? Or is it just a cramped service elevator hitting back in the kitchen next to the garbage?
Yeah, making guests ride with the trash is not radical hospitality.
Not at all. Third, what is the parking situation? Are there designated spaces close to the entry point, or is it a massive sprawling lot with no clear paths? And finally, are the crucial areas like the ceremony space, the dining room, the restrooms, are they physically adjacent? Or are you forcing guests to hike between remote locations?
Okay, here is where I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Specifically regarding aesthetics versus budget, because a lot of couples or event planners are working with fixed budgets and highly specific visions, like they want a rustic barn in the mountains or this incredibly sleek modern gallery space.
Right, the Pinterest dream.
Exactly, and there's a very real fear that if they book this beautiful unconventional space, retrofitting it with industrial medical-looking aluminum ramps is going to completely destroy the aesthetic vibe they just paid thousands of dollars to create. And custom woodwork, that might blow their entire budget.
That is a completely valid concern.
So how does the text reconcile that tension between aesthetics and function?
It addresses it directly by pointing to how the rental industry has actually evolved. You do not have to choose between a cohesive aesthetic and human dignity anymore.
Oh, really? What's the solution?
Well, professional event rental ecosystems like the vendors that are vetted by Weddizer, they now specialize in integrated, temporary accessibility infrastructure.
That sounds fancy.
It is. We were talking about modular ramps that can be carpeted to perfectly match the stage of a luxury ballroom, or finished in reclaimed wood to seamlessly blend into that rustic barn aesthetic you mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it actually looks intentional. It looks like it was part of the architectural plan all along, rather than just some hastily rented medical device slapped on the stairs.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, while the aesthetics can be totally customized, the text is incredibly strict on the physics and mechanics of these installations.
Right. Safety first.
Yeah, you can't just throw a piece of plywood over some stairs and call it a day.
Yeah, definitely not. Because an incline that is too steep is actually way more dangerous than a set of stairs. I mean, if gravity overpowers someone's upper body strength, they're just rolling backward. That's a disaster.
Precisely. Universal design principles dictate specific mathematical ratios for ramps. It's usually a 1:12 ratio, meaning for every inch of vertical rise, you need at least a foot of horizontal ramp length.
Okay, good to know.
The text mandates that these surfaces must be non-slip, they must have structurally sound handrails, and crucially, they need to be properly lit.
Oh, lighting, right.
Yeah. If you are hosting a reception that goes into the night, Guests need to see exactly where the incline begins and ends to prevent tripping.
And the text points out something fascinating about where these ramps actually need to be deployed. Because it's not just about getting through the front door of the building.
No, getting through the door is just the bare minimum prerequisite. The guide emphasizes that accessibility must extend to the ceremony stages, the dance floors, and the photo booth areas.
The photo booths, I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Right. But think about the psychological impact here. If your best friend can get into the dining room, but they can't get onto the raised dance floor to celebrate with you, or they can't get their mobility device into the photo booth to take a picture, the event is still segregating them.
That makes perfect sense. Being permitted in the room is very, very different from being invited to actually participate.
Exactly.
Which perfectly leads us into the next core concept, how guests actually move and flow through the space once they are finally inside. I was thinking about this conceptually, kind of like civil engineering.
Oh, how so? Well, imagine designing a city grid. If you place a massive sports stadium right next to a one-lane highway, you are going to create a catastrophic traffic jam. A wedding venue operates on the exact same principles of spatial flow.
The source text actually calls this the choreography of comfort.
The choreography of comfort, I love that.
If you don't map out the pathways, bottlenecks are totally inevitable. The text meticulously breaks down these guest movement corridors. You literally have to trace the exact route a guest will take from the parking area to the ceremony,
Right.
then from the ceremony to the cocktail hour, and from the cocktail hour to the reception hall, the buffet stations, and the restrooms.
And this is exactly where that city grid metaphor gets real. If you place your main bar right next to the narrow entrance of the dining room, you've essentially created a human barricade.
Oh, a total nightmare.
Yeah. For an able-bodied guest, squeezing past 50 people holding drinks is mildly annoying. But for a guest navigating with a walker or a cane, that bottleneck literally traps them. They cannot physically pass. Which is why the source heavily emphasizes maintaining wide, clearly marked pathways at all times. But movement is only half the equation, right? The other half is resting. Your event grid needs rest stops.
Yes. The seating strategies in the text were so enlightening to me because they focused on the actual biomechanics of sitting and standing. For instance, it explicitly recommends ensuring you have chairs with sturdy armrests available, particularly for seniors.
That is just pure physics. If you have limited lower body strength or maybe knee issues, pushing your entire body weight up from a seated position using only your leg muscles is incredibly difficult.
It's basically doing a deep squat.
Right. But armrests allow a guest to use their triceps and upper body strength to assist the movement. It gives them autonomy.
That detail is brilliant. The guide also talks about reserving front row seating, and not just for VIPs, but for guests who might need clearer sight lines or better auditory access.
So important.
And it demands extra space between tables to prevent that gridlock we just talked about. And, it strongly warns against the temptation to overcrowd tables. Squeezing 10 chairs around an 8-person table doesn't just make elbow room tight. It creates a solid physical barricade in the room that strollers and mobility aids literally cannot penetrate.
And while we are mapping this physical grid out, we have to address the ultimate, absolute, non-negotiable rest stop, the restrooms.
Oh, right. Because it doesn't matter how beautiful the venue is. If a guest cannot safely use the restroom,